People often have a misconception about an electromagnetic pulse impact, thinking it will strike suddenly and without warning, like a bolt of lightning out of the blue. While this scenario is certainly possible, the reality of an EMP event is often more complex and multifaceted. To truly understand the broader implications of an EMP, it's important to examine historical examples that have demonstrated the devastating potential of this phenomenon. One of the most significant and impactful EMP events in modern history was the Starfish Prime nuclear test conducted by the United States in 1962. As part of the broader Operation Fishbowl, this experiment involved the detonation of a 1.4 megaton nuclear device, approximately 250 miles above the Pacific Ocean near the Hawaiian archipelago. The sheer scale and intensity of the resulting electromagnetic pulse caught even the scientists by surprise, revealing just how catastrophic the effects of such an event could be. The immediate impact of the Starfish Prime EMP was widespread and far-reaching. In Hawaii, located nearly 900 miles away from the detonation site, the effects were nothing short of chaotic. Streetlights blinked out, alarm systems were triggered, and telephone services were disrupted, plunging large swathes of the islands into a state of temporary blackout. The pulse even managed to induce electrical surges in airborne aircraft, causing radio blackouts and disrupting critical communication systems. But the devastation did not stop there. The intense electromagnetic radiation generated by the Starfish Prime explosion also had a lasting impact on the Earth's atmosphere, creating an artificial radiation belt that encircled the planet. This artificial radiation band proved to be highly detrimental to orbiting satellites, including the British Ariel and American Telstar satellites, which suffered significant damage and degradation due to the increased radiation levels. The Starfish Prime event was a stark reminder of the immense power and unpredictable nature of an MP, and it served as a wake-up call for governments and scientific communities around the world. It highlighted the vulnerability of modern technological infrastructure to the devastating effects of such a pulse, and the urgent need to develop comprehensive strategies and countermeasures to mitigate the risks posed by this phenomenon. In the decades since Starfish Prime, our understanding of EMPs has grown, but the threat remains ever as our reliance on electronic systems and network technologies continues to increase. The potential consequences of an MP attack or natural event have become even more dire, underscoring the necessity for continued research, preparedness, and resilience in the face of this formidable challenge. The events surrounding the Starfish Prime high altitude nuclear test in 1962 provided a stark glimpse into the devastating potential of an electromagnetic pulse attack. Conducted by the United States as part of the Operation Dominic's nuclear test series, Starfish Prime involved detonating a 1.4 megaton nuclear warhead 250 miles above the Pacific Ocean near the Hawaiian Islands. The immediate effects were awe-inspiring yet alarming. Observers on the ground in Hawaii described the sky lighting up with dazzling colors and strange auroras for several minutes, creating an almost otherworldly spectacle. However, the long-term impacts of the test were far more concerning. The detonation created persistent radiation belts that lingered for years, affecting the operation of satellites and jeopardizing space missions. This demonstrated how an EMP, whether from a nuclear detonation or powerful solar storm, could have far-reaching and complex consequences on modern technological systems. The Starfish Prime test was a watershed moment that fundamentally changed our understanding of the EMP threat. It showed us how devastating such an event could be, not just from nuclear weapons, but potentially from other sources as well. And this realization has led to ongoing efforts by governments and critical infrastructure providers to develop strategies and technologies to protect against the EMP risk. Imagine comparing the America of 1962 to the present day, especially when considering a place like Hawaii. Back then, the electrical infrastructure was relatively minimal, with fewer power lines, microwave dishes, and street lamps illuminating the landscape. But in the decades since, our modern world has become increasingly reliant on a vast, interconnected grid of electrical and digital systems. From our homes and businesses to our transportation networks and communication systems, nearly every aspect of daily life is now intricately linked to this complex web of technology. This remarkable transformation has brought unprecedented convenience and efficiency to our lives. However, it has also made us highly vulnerable to the potentially devastating impacts of an EMP event. A large-scale, long-lasting power outage triggered by an EMP could cripple critical infrastructure, disrupt essential services, and wreak havoc on our way of life. The Starfish Prime test served as a stark warning, underscoring the urgent need to understand and address this threat. In the decades since 1962, considerable progress has been made in studying the effects of EMPs and developing mitigation strategies, but the task of protecting our increasingly interconnected and technology-dependent society remains an ongoing challenge. As we continue to push the boundaries of technological innovation, it is essential that we also prioritize the resilience and security of our critical systems, ensuring that the lessons of Starfish Prime are not forgotten. The threat of an electromagnetic pulse impact is a growing concern in today's heavily digitized world. Unlike a traditional ground-level nuclear detonation, which causes immediate physical destruction, a high-altitude nuclear explosion could have devastating consequences without the same visible signs of devastation. The burst of electromagnetic radiation released by such an explosion has the potential to fry electronic circuits and knock out power grids over a vast geographical area. Imagine a scenario where every piece of modern technology, from your smartphone to critical hospital equipment, is suddenly rendered useless. The impact of an EMP strike on the United States would be nothing short of catastrophic. Our modern society's deep dependency on electronics means we could be thrust back into a pre-digital age. Struggling to perform even the most basic everyday tasks, power outages would paralyze cities, disrupt communication networks, and halt transportation systems. Food supply chains could collapse as the lack of functioning logistics and distribution systems would make it nearly impossible to get essential supplies to the populations that need them. Healthcare services would be crippled, with hospitals forced to operate with limited resources and capabilities, potentially leading to a breakdown in the provision of vital medical care. While the Hollywood depiction of the suitcase nuke may capture the public's imagination, the reality is that a true nuclear bomb requires a significantly larger size and scale than what could realistically fit inside a briefcase. However, a more plausible threat is the so-called dirty bomb, a conventional explosive device laced with radioactive material. Though a dirty bomb would not produce the massive explosive yield of a nuclear weapon, it could still cause widespread panic and fear by dispersing harmful radiation across a targeted area. Since the events of 9/11, security measures have been significantly tightened in an effort to mitigate the risks posed by radioactive materials. Radiation detectors are now more prevalent, making it increasingly difficult for any potentially dangerous radioactive substances to go undetected. Nevertheless, the threat of a dirty bomb or an EMP attack remains a constant concern, and governments and security agencies around the world continue to work tirelessly to develop countermeasures and contingency plans to protect their citizens and critical infrastructure from these evolving threats. The threat of an electromagnetic pulse remains a serious concern that cannot be overlooked. Our current electrical grid and infrastructure are more vulnerable than ever before, primarily due to their increasing complexity and our heavy reliance on interconnected technology. While the notion of a suitcase bomb might seem more akin to fiction than reality, the potential threat of an EMP attack serves as a stark reminder of how our technological advancements have made us both incredibly powerful and precariously dependent on these very systems. The question we must grapple with is not just whether we are adequately prepared for such a catastrophic event, but also how quickly we could recover and adapt in the aftermath. It is worth noting that quite a few state patrol vehicles are now equipped with nuclear radiation sensors, a crucial tool in the effort to detect and respond to potential radiological threats. Imagine a scenario where a trooper is patrolling the roads and their sensor suddenly beeps, alerting them to the presence of radioactive materials in a passing vehicle. This would prompt the officer to pull the driver over and investigate further, a crucial step in safeguarding public safety. However, the presence of these radiation sensors also raises some concerns. For instance, did you know that if you ever need radiation therapy, such as for the treatment of thyroid conditions, you might actually set off one of these sensors during routine travel? This highlights the delicate balance we must strike between enhancing our security measures and ensuring they do not inadvertently cause undue disruption or concern for individuals legitimately engaging in necessary medical treatments. And the threat of EMPs and radiological hazards has been a significant concern since the events of 9/11, as these types of attacks could have devastating consequences for our interconnected society. As we continue to grapple with these complex issues, it is crucial that we remain vigilant, proactive, and adaptive in our approach to safeguarding our critical infrastructure and protecting the well-being of our communities. Whenever you travel with any medical equipment or substances that may emit radiation, it's crucial to carry a detailed prescription note from your doctor. This note should clearly explain the nature of your recent medical treatment and the reasons for your elevated radiation level. This documentation can be used to quickly and effectively communicate with any curious law enforcement or security personnel, reassuring them that you are not transporting anything dangerous or illegal. The threat of a nuclear bomb being smuggled into the United States and detonated within its borders is a frightening scenario that, while seemingly cinematic, is a very real and pressing concern for national security agencies. In the wake of the 9/11 attacks, security measures throughout the country have been significantly bolstered, making the successful execution of such a catastrophic plot incredibly unlikely. However, the possibility of a devastating electromagnetic pulse attack remains a significant threat. An EMP attack would require the launch of a nuclear-equipped missile, potentially from a hostile nation such as Russia, North Korea, or China. The thought of such an attack is deeply unsettling, as it would leave the American public with a mere 20 to 30 minutes of warning before impact, depending on the missile's point of origin. This narrow window for response and reaction is hardly reassuring, as it would leave little time for authorities to scramble, coordinated defense and evacuation effort. Fortunately, the combination of advanced sensor technology and rigorous monitoring systems has significantly improved the ability of security agencies to detect the presence of radioactive materials quickly, reducing the chances of a large-scale nuclear event. However, even with these safeguards in place, the potential for disaster remains ever present, as a single lapse or unexpected vulnerability could have catastrophic consequences for the nation. In our increasingly volatile and unpredictable world, maintaining national security and public safety has become a paramount concern for governments and law enforcement agencies worldwide. The thought of a trooper sensor going off, leading to the discovery of a radioactive threat, serves as a stark and unsettling reminder of the silent dangers that could be lurking around us, ready to strike at any moment. Imagine a scenario where you're just going about your day, oblivious to the looming threats, when suddenly you receive a notification on your phone alerting you to an incoming missile. This would undoubtedly trigger a wave of panic and uncertainty, as the public would immediately begin to wonder how the government would react and whether the missile carries an electromagnetic pulse device or a nuclear warhead. In the event of such a missile launch towards the United States, the initial detection systems, whether they are satellite-based, sea-based, or land-based, would face a significant challenge in immediately identifying the nature of the threat. Both an EMP device and a nuclear warhead would be taken with the utmost seriousness, as the potential consequences of either could be catastrophic. An EMP, which releases a powerful burst of electromagnetic energy, has the potential to cripple electrical grids and electronic devices over a vast area, potentially causing massive disruptions to critical infrastructure, communications, and daily life. The impact of an EMP attack could be far-reaching, with cascading effects that could paralyze entire regions or even the nation as a whole. On the other hand, a nuclear warhead would unleash the devastating physical destruction that is typically associated with nuclear attacks. The sheer force of the blast, the intense heat, and the lingering radiation would have a catastrophic impact on both human lives and the built environment, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Recognizing the gravity of these threats, the Department of Homeland Security and other government agencies have been actively working to bolster their preparedness and response capabilities. They are well aware of the EMP threat and have been exploring various strategies and technologies to mitigate the risks and ensure the resilience of critical systems and infrastructure. Despite these efforts, the complex nature of these threats and the uncertainties surrounding their detection and response protocols pose significant challenges for the authorities. The need for robust, coordinated, and adaptable emergency response plans has never been more pressing, as the safety and security of the American people hang in the balance. The threat of an electromagnetic pulse attack has become a significant concern in national security circles. Governments and experts have put various programs in place to mitigate the risks, focusing on building resilience and protecting critical infrastructure. These efforts include hardening the electrical grid, ensuring key communication and control systems can withstand an EMP, and developing early warning and response capabilities. The potential for widespread electronic disruption from an EMP is certainly substantial, Experts warn that a high-altitude EMP attack could cripple power grids, disrupt communications, and disable a wide range of electronic devices and systems across a large geographical area. The consequences of such an event could be catastrophic, paralyzing essential services, transportation, and the broader economy. However, it's important to differentiate the EMP threat from the more immediate, devastating impact of a nuclear explosion. While an EMP could cause significant long-term disruption, a nuclear detonation would have a more immediate and destructive impact with intense heat, powerful shock waves, and dangerous levels of radiation. Some experts even suggest that a high-altitude EMP attack might be used as a precursor or component of a larger nuclear strategy, potentially disabling response capabilities before a follow-up nuclear strike. This type of strategic move would significantly complicate the decision-making process for immediate response. Governments would be under immense pressure to react swiftly to any detected missile launch, regardless of the payload, in order to mitigate the potential for a devastating nuclear attack. Public and governmental awareness of the EMP threat has been growing, especially in light of historical incidents like the Starfish Prime test in 1962, which demonstrated the disruptive power of high-altitude nuclear detonations. However, the practicality and likelihood of a standalone EMP attack are still subjects of debate among experts. Some suggest that a combination of targeted cyber attacks and more conventional sabotage could achieve similar disruptive effects without the drastic escalations that a nuclear detonation would provoke. This alternative approach could potentially exploit vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure and communication networks, potentially causing widespread disruption without the catastrophic impact of a nuclear event. Ultimately, the EMP threat remains a significant concern, and governments must continue to invest in resilience and protection measures to mitigate the risks. At the same time, the complexity of this issue, the potential for strategic use of EMPs, and the availability of alternative disruptive techniques underscore the need for ongoing research, analysis, and preparedness in the face of this evolving national security challenge. The US government has established a comprehensive and multi-layered missile defense system designed to detect, track, and neutralize incoming threats. These systems include the ground-based mid-course defense, GNGA's ballistic missile defense, and the terminal high-altitude area defense, THAAD. Upon the detection of a missile launch, these interconnected systems would work in harmony to determine the trajectory, speed, and potential impact zone of the incoming threat. Simultaneously, a team of intelligence analysts and defense experts would assess the nature of the payload, evaluating the possibility of it carrying an electromagnetic pulse and bice, nuclear warhead, or some other form of destructive payload. Seamless communication and coordination between the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, SS, and other relevant government agencies would be crucial in the critical early moments following a detected missile launch. Well-rehearsed protocols and emergency response plans are regularly updated to ensure a swift, efficient, and well-coordinated response. In the event of an EMP attack, the immediate impact would be on the nation's electronic and electrical infrastructure. The government would swiftly deploy emergency response teams and task forces to assess the extent of the damage and implement mitigation strategies to restore critical systems and services. These efforts would be supported by the activation of public warning systems, such as the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System IPAWS, which would inform citizens of the impending threat and provide clear instructions on protective measures to be taken. To further strengthen the nation's resilience, the government has invested in the development of hardened and redundant communication networks, as well as the diversification of power generation and distribution systems. These measures are aimed at ensuring the continuity of essential services and the rapid recovery of vital infrastructure in the aftermath of a catastrophic event. Recognizing the evolving nature of global threats, the U.S. government continues to modernize and enhance its missile defense capabilities, incorporating cutting-edge technologies and leveraging the latest advancements in data analysis, sensor integration, and real-time decision-making. This multi-layered approach, combined with rigorous training and coordination, is designed to provide the nation with a robust and adaptable defense against a wide range of missile-based threats. Communications and the continuity of essential services are critical priorities in responding to a potential electromagnetic pulse or nuclear attack. Government agencies would work quickly to assess the scale and nature of the threat, with a focus on ensuring the functionality of critical infrastructure like power grids, communications networks, and public services. Contingency plans are in place to maintain leadership and decision-making capabilities, even if widespread electronic disruptions occur. In the event of a nuclear warhead, the immediate concern would be the destructive blast radius, and the potential fallout, evacuation orders would be issued for areas within the anticipated impact zone, if feasible, to protect civilian populations. Emergency responders, including fire, police, and medical teams, would mobilize to provide urgent assistance, conduct rescue operations, and contain any hazardous materials released. Decontamination and triage efforts would be a top priority to mitigate the impacts on human health and the environment. Simultaneously, the government would initiate a multifaceted response, both diplomatically and militarily, to address the broader implications of a nuclear attack. This would include efforts to identify the responsible party, coordinate with international allies, and consider potential retaliatory actions to deter future aggression and protect national security interests. The decision-making process would weigh the risks and consequences of various courses of action, balancing the need for a swift and decisive response with the imperative to minimize further escalation and loss of life. Advancements in early warning and missile defense systems have enhanced the ability to detect and potentially intercept incoming threats. If a missile is detected, advanced algorithms and sensor networks would rapidly analyze the trajectory, payload, and origin of the projectile. This information would be immediately relayed to military commanders, who could then make informed decisions about the appropriate defensive measures to take, such as launching interceptor missiles or activating other countermeasures. The goal would be to neutralize the threat before it reaches its intended target, thereby mitigating the devastating consequences of an EMP or nuclear detonation. The preparedness and response strategies required to address these complex, high-stakes scenarios underscore the critical importance of ongoing investment in cutting-edge technologies, comprehensive contingency planning, and robust coordination among government agencies, emergency services, and international partners. The overlap between EMP and nuclear attack response protocols highlights the need for a multifaceted, adaptable approach that can effectively navigate the rapidly evolving landscape of modern security challenges. The prospect of an unexpected and unprovoked electromagnetic pulse impact on the United States is a deeply concerning scenario, but one that experts generally consider to be highly improbable in the absence of a broader military conflict. The logic behind this assessment is straightforward. An EMP attack, whether delivered by a ground-based nuclear device or a missile-launched weapon, would almost certainly be viewed as a prelude to a larger-scale attack, triggering a massive escalation and potentially leading to all-out nuclear war. The rationale is that no rational actor would launch an EMP strike in isolation, as doing so would be tantamount to an act of war with devastating consequences. Such an attack would undoubtedly be interpreted as the opening salvo of a broader military campaign, prompting an overwhelming retaliatory response. The chances of a country or group successfully executing an EMP strike without triggering an immediate and catastrophic global conflict are therefore considered to be extremely low. That said, the potential for rogue actors or hostile state actors to obtain the necessary technology and delivery systems to carry out a limited EMP attack cannot be entirely dismissed. If enemy groups were somehow able to acquire advanced missile capabilities and integrate them with EMP-generating devices, the possibility of a more targeted and unexpected strike divorced from a larger nuclear exchange would increase. However, even in such a scenario, the likelihood of a successful EMP attack without sparking a wider war remains exceedingly slim. Ultimately, the specter of an EMP attack looms large in the minds of policymakers and security experts, but the consensus view is that such an event is far more likely to occur as part of a broader military conflict rather than as a standalone, unprovoked strike. The potential consequences of an EMP attack are so severe that it is almost unthinkable that any adversary would risk such an action without a clear strategic rationale and the ability to withstand the inevitable and cataclysmic retaliation. Electromagnetic pulse of PAP weapons are a fascinating and often misunderstood technological capability. Many people are unaware that it is possible to create EMPs that can selectively disable electronics in specific buildings or infrastructure while leaving other areas intact. This level of precision targeting is one of the more unique and lesser known aspects of EMP technology. In the context of the United States, this precision targeting is one of the few ways an EMP attack could potentially occur without escalating into a full-scale major war. Of course, in the nightmare scenario of Third World War, all bets are off. Any and all military options would likely be on the table, including the use of high-yield EMP weapons. The prospect of an EMP attack as part of a broader conflict is highly concerning and something that preparedness experts take very seriously. That's why being proactive about EMP preparedness from the individual level all the way up to national security planning is so crucial. At the same time, the idea of a random, isolated EMP strike occurring without any preceding escalation of geopolitical tensions is generally seen as quite far-fetched by most intelligence analysts. The hard reality is that our adversaries, while certainly advancing in both espionage capabilities and technological development, simply do not yet possess the specialized missile technology required to deliver a strategic EMP attack against the United States. The threat, while not non-existent, remains relatively low for the average American citizen going about their daily life. I said it would be unwise to become complacent. We must remain vigilant and continue monitoring the situation closely. If tensions between global powers were to significantly escalate, potentially edging closer to all-out war, then the risk of an EMP attack would undoubtedly increase. In that nightmare scenario, an MC strike could potentially serve as a destabilizing first shot, potentially sparking a cascading series of events leading to full-scale global conflict. So, while it's natural for people to feel anxious during power outages, wondering if an MP might be to blame, the statistical likelihood of such an event in the absence of major war is quite slim. The best approach is to stay informed through reliable sources, understand the potential threats, and prepare accordingly. With measured, sensible precautions, the average citizen can help ensure they are ready to weather any storm, no matter how dire the geopolitical climate may become. Despite the global tumult and uncertainty we face, the chances of an imminent, isolated EMP attack remain low. But preparation is still the name of the game. Protective measures against an EMP electromagnetic pulse attack can provide a crucial sense of preparedness and security in an increasingly unpredictable world. The reality is that such an attack, without any prior warning, would likely lead to a massive and destabilizing geopolitical crisis. The consequences would be unimaginable, with critical infrastructure failures, communication breakdowns, and widespread panic gripping the populace. The impact on society would be devastating, potentially causing long-term disruption to every aspect of our modern technology-dependent way of life. Transportation, healthcare, communication, and commerce all would be profoundly and adversely affected, leading to a societal upheaval of epic proportions. It's important to understand that the threat of an EMP attack is not merely the stuff of science fiction. The technology and capability to unleash such a catastrophic event already exists, and it is constantly evolving. Preparing for this eventuality is not about fear-mongering, but rather about being realistic and proactive in the face of a genuine and growing risk. The ripple effects of an EMP attack would be far-reaching and deeply disruptive. Imagine a world without functioning power grids, telecommunications networks, or access to vital services. The resulting chaos and breakdown of social order would be nothing short of apocalyptic, leaving communities and individuals vulnerable and in a state of profound crisis. While the probability of a random, unprovoked EMP strike may be relatively low, the potential consequences are severe enough to warrant serious and sustained preparation. This is not about living in constant fear, but rather about being informed, vigilant, and ready to respond effectively should such a catastrophic event ever occur. By investing in protective measures, developing contingency plans, and educating the public, we can work to mitigate the impact of an MP attack and ensure the resilience of our society in the face of this emerging threat. Staying proactive and prepared is not just a matter of personal responsibility, but a collective imperative to safeguard our way of life and ensure a more secure and stable future for all.